Maharashtra 2013. So we have a very interesting session on cloud data centers and emerging e-governance initiatives. This session will be chaired by Shri Moez Hussain Ali, who is the State Information Officer, Government of Maharashtra. So may I invite Mr. Hussain on the stage, please. Welcome. Let's give me a big hand, please. Welcome, sir. Please occupy the middle chair. I will now invite Shri Krunal Sidhpura from Government of the Maharashtra IT Department. Kindly come on the stage. So Krunal will speak on the DIT Maha Cloud Initiative, and he will be assisted by Rajesh Agrawal, who is chosen to remain not on the stage, and Reena Malhotra, who is a director from DOT. May I invite you on the stage, Madam Reena ji? Welcome. I will invite GB Shaikh, who is looking at government and defense verticals as a Fortinet. Welcome, Shaikh ji. Give me a big hand, please. We also have Mr. Venkatesh Ramarao, who is the head of state government business of Wipro. May I welcome Venkatesh? I also would like to welcome Bhavesh Chauhan, who is a solution specialist from VMware. Welcome, Bhavesh. And we also have Shri Onkar Marathe, who is the director IT of the government of Lakshadweep. We understand that he is somewhere around, and so I think he will be coming a bit late. So with this, I will hand over this session to Mr. Hussain, and I will give you the agenda also, so that.
Afternoon. So we will start our post lunch session, and it's a very interesting topic. Everybody is talking about cloud, and according to Gartner survey I was just reading, it is going to be become a $440 million market in the public cloud as on means in India. And also, you know, one of the survey has said that 40% of our mobile applications by 2016 are going to be on cloud actually. So, and government also is making all its effort, and in Ministry of Information Technology, in Department of Information Technology and NIC, we are trying to move as much of our applications to the cloud. The recent example is the public distribution system, ration card system we have moved, so that, you know, it has got many advantages. And so now to begin with, I think I will not take much time. I'll request Mr. Krun, Mrs. Reena Malhotra. She is Director and Network and Department of Telecommunication, Government of India. I will request her to give her views.
Good afternoon, Secretary IT, Government of Maharashtra, Chairperson, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I am from DOT, and in this session, as such, we don't have any cloud offering, we don't have any data center, we don't have e-governance activities directly handling. But still, we are there from government as policies, and we are making a lot of policies around these things. So I will try to talk on policies and new concepts and how those should be taken care in the environment of cloud, data center, e-governance, so that in long run every citizen of India is benefited. When we talk about internet, future of internet, first thing which comes in the mind is the concept called Internet of Things. Most of you people must heard what is the Internet of Things. It is that not only people who will be connecting on internet, on broadband and internet, it will also be machines. So all machines will, most of the machines, appliances will be connecting on the internet, talking to each other, sending information, and that information will be received, analyzed by another machines, and actions will be taken. When we talk about these things, these will bring the concepts of smart city, smart grid, smart buildings, smart power, e-health, where a lot of monitoring will be done by through machines and people will be left to do the work and thinking and planning, those kind of things. As Secretary IT sir has said in the early morning session that now broadband concepts are changing, and wireless broadband access is more than wireline, which is bringing lot of pressure on the services being offered. In another few years, the concept will also again change. At that time, IPv6 will be the thing which will be taking most of the traffic. Today, internet is being accessed on IPv4. Everybody know IPv4, so I will not go in details. Only thing I would like to add here, as been said earlier, that IPv4 addresses in India are hardly 40 million. And we envisage that in another 3 years, 4 years time, more than 300-400 million users and devices will be connecting on the internet. To take care of such massive connectivity, IPv6 is the only option available. And if IPv6 connectivity is going to be there, everything has to be built around that. Or cloud has to be built around that, data centers have to be built around that, network connecting to clouds and e-governance activities have to be built around IPv6, because e-governance activities are for the remotest citizen of the India, rural citizen of Maharashtra and all other places where connectivity which will be coming in future will be only IPv6. So everything has to come on that. And keeping in this mind, we are from DOT side, we are bringing lot of policies, initiatives and activities around IPv6. As R.M. Agarwal sir has earlier said in the morning about the policies which have gone around IPv6, so I will not talk much about them, but I will talk about other initiatives, what is being done in around IPv6 by DOT. When we talk about IPv6 uses, first thing is how we get access on IPv6. So most of the service providers today are ready to offer IPv6 services. 3 names have come in the morning which have given connectivity to Maharashtra data centers. There are so many other operators, almost everyone is ready, and if those who are not ready to offer connectivities, they will be available in few months. So connectivity will not be any issue on IPv6 to any user anymore. Next comes the issue of IPv6 address availability. IPv6 addresses are available through service providers, directly through NIXI also, so those can be readily get taken. Next come how we have to conceptualize and how we have to do the things. For that purpose, you can take lead on your own, otherwise DOT has appointed consultants. There are 11 consultants appointed by DOT. You can take reference of them, you can use your expertise, or you can use expertise of others also. It is not mandated to go to a DOT appointed consultants only. We are also expanding the panel of consultant which will be made available to everyone to have wider and better understanding in today's scenario. Once that thing is there, next comes the training. What is IPv6? How IPv6 has to be used. So for training purposes, we are also in the process of appointing training organizations who will be giving IPv6 related training, which will be happening very soon. Also, as come in the morning that Maharashtra is also doing lot of IPv6 IT training across all segments. So we will request them to add IPv6 also as per the trainees profile, that how much they should know, and that should be added, so that will be a few added advantage in long term for the Maharashtra e-governance activities. Apart from that, we are having DOT has set up a test bed for IPv6 under TEC, where any end user, any manufacturer, any person who want to use IPv6, they can go and do testing. Currently, those services are available free of cost, and those can also be utilized. Apart from that, DOT is in the process of setting up a center of excellence, where we will be taking all expertise, consultancies, targeted consultancy, not general, and maybe we will be doing some pilots, funding, and all these things will be taken care. Coming to the focus of here, what as such in the eMaharashtra theme, what should be done? So I wanted to talk that IPv6 should be adopted, but that has already come in the morning that Maharashtra data centers have IPv6 in their network. So with that first and most important milestone achieved, there are not many other things to be done. So what we will request is that IPv6 is made available to complete Maharashtra cloud data center and complete SWAN network of the Maharashtra, so that every remotest user connecting shall be able to use IPv6. Apart from that, as being told that lot of applications are being developed for e-governance, and hundreds of applications are planned in near future, in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So we will request that all those applications should be implemented on IPv4 as well as on IPv6, so that after 2 years, nobody has to reinvent the applications on IPv6, and that will be a huge burden. When we talk about this, I will share a success story from Flipkart. Everybody must be knowing Flipkart. That is a e-commerce site. They have taken the IPv6 activities, initiatives more than a year back. When they started that, they have decided that they will be migrating to IPv6. They identified internal team of 4 persons. They studied for 2 weeks and implemented IPv6 in 4 days. Why I am hearing it here is that it is not a huge cost. It is only the thinking process, determination. We have to do it, and once you be determined, it can be implemented. But it is significant here for the eMaharashtra governance activities, because when hundreds of applications are there, even if we take 2 days, 3 days to upgrade to IPv6, it will be a huge and uphill task, which can be taken care right now if it is planned properly. Apart from that, there are so many other applications which are taking place in Maharashtra, which are on IPv6. There are enterprises using IPv6, like Bank of Maharashtra is there, Indus Tower is there, who are using IPv6 in their network. So once those references are there, those will definitely bring confidence to the users that IPv6 can be used. It is not a concept, it is a reality, and it is workable. Apart from that, there are few pilots also happening here. Maharashtra MSC DCL has proposed a smart grid pilot project of around 20,000 subscribers, which will be coming soon in Maharashtra. Apart from that, Reliance Infrastructure is also doing some IPv6 related pilots, and we are in touch with them, and we will be sharing the results in near future, so that more pilots around that can be built. And with these pilots coming, we would also request Secretary IT Maharashtra to take up some pilot around IPv6 which can be made as a role model and can be showcased in future things. So I would not speak much, or rather I would like to take few questions from the audience if they have something in mind, so that I can answer their issues also.
Very quick few questions. You have
Yeah.
nicely summarized the initiatives at your end actually. And DOT has a very important role to play in ICT. And
Yeah, we have a role, and definitely
Hello.
we will be extending all kind of support to anyone who wants on IPv6. That is a commitment from our side, and that's why we are here also.
any questions?
Hello. Yeah.
Please,
See, when we are transferring from IPv4 to IPv6, what are all the steps involved in it?
See, when you talk about IPv4 to IPv6, though it is a network protocol, but it may have implications on your network, it may have implication on your firewall, it will have implications to your application also, because wherever we are capturing logs, IP addresses, or we are making any intelligence built in the application based on the destination or source of the from where the requests are coming. So it will have impact in every place. It will be depending on your network, it will be depending on your setup. But from government side, we have earlier given 4 years before, we have given a guideline that all networking equipment procured should be IPv6 ready. So if you have that IPv6 ready network, you can plan it and you can implement it. It will be purely dependent on your setup, what is there, and it is not a very straight answers like that.
Will both IPv4 and IPv6 coexist?
Yeah, they both coexist. Today also both are there. Service providers are offering these kind of services. Today, I can give you example. If you go to Google, which I think everybody goes, if you are on IPv4, you can connect on IPv4 to Google. If you are on IPv6, you can connect on IPv6 to Google. And both are going to coexist for very long time. So technology, IPv6 is being involved as such that it should be coexisting with IPv4. That is the requirement, and that will continue to happen.
Thank you.
We will thank you, Ms. Mehrotra.
Thank you.
And I would now request Mr. Kunal, who is principal consultant to DIT, to present his views.
So, very good afternoon, e-citizens. Reason for calling everybody e-citizens is now, since, as Madam already told, that we had been exponentially growing in ICT usage. Even the IPv4 that was envisaged quite a few years earlier has got exhausted, and now IPv6 is the new generation. So taking that point of view, even the IT infrastructure that has been utilized as of now for state data center or any other data center to host the applications and webs, even that is getting overloaded with the computing power that is required for each of the applications. So keeping in that into mind, Maharashtra in earlier days of year back, okay, 2011, okay, so it was envisaged that since we are already having such a large infrastructure available, now since Maharashtra had already set up such a large infrastructure as state data center, and we had already procured the IT computing, server, storage, hardware, networks, security, all those equipments, but there had been a limitation in the usage of that. Now, if suppose there are 10 to 20 applications running in a state data center, then each one in a traditional fashion would have required 10 to 20 machines. Now, to address those requirements, Secretary IT had a vision of he already thought like there would be exponential growth in the number of applications that would be hosted in state data center. So keeping that into mind and to have effective and efficient utilization of SDC, he thought of taking this state data center to a new level. So cloud computing is the booming age as of now. Okay, so that was thought very well earlier. Okay, so that was the briefing, how this Mahagaon Cloud has evolved and how it started. So taking the glance of Maharashtra State Data Center, as of now, we are having 1,450 square feet of area, wherein we are having 39 racks hosted. We have 86 TB of storage capacity. We are tier 2 data center having 99.74% of uptime. We have our own IPv6 v4 blocks available with us. We have more than 150 applications hosted from the state data center as of now. The services that are being offered is cloud services, managed hosting, and co-location services. So in cloud services, the user department just has to bring its own application and websites. Rest of the infrastructure will be provided by state data center. So a virtual instance on cloud would be created, which can be used by the department for hosting their application and running it through state data center. In managed hosting, we provide dedicated servers to them. In co-location services, user department has some specific requirements and they wish to bring their own IT infrastructure into data center. So we allow that as well. So these are the three large overview of the services that is being provided from state data center as of now. So we definitely encourage cloud services. Reason being, it will decrease the footprint, overall carbon footprint, the utilization of energy would decrease. Our all kind of resources will be effectively and efficiently utilized. Now to give, as I briefed you earlier, like we already had conceptualized during 2011. So proof of concept was organized in 2011 November. Then it led to, after we got the successful results, we went ahead with full-fledged cloud implementation in 2012. So now some, as has already been mentioned by Secretary Sir, that we are the first and only cloud setup that has been set up by a government for a government entity. So we are having very high volume of applications running there. We have our own IP blocks. We are already having membership with Appning and Irene. So we are completely vendor independent in terms of ISPs. And the latest thing, the NextBuzz IPv6, we have successfully tested that end to end. And now we will go ahead with rollout of applications and SWAN for IPv6. So keeping in that into mind, self-sustenance is a major challenge for any kind of services to be run from data center. So a rate chart has been published for the government entities, wherein we are providing the services based on some predefined rates. Now these rates are very, very competitive to the most of the private sector cloud service providers. So that's the most unique features about Mahagaon Cloud. Now talking about cloud into more depth, we have Microsoft as well as VMware Cloud implemented. On Microsoft, we have 6 physical machines wherein we are running 25 virtual machines. Total applications in productions, 7 as of now. So we are still moving into upgradation to 2012. VMware, we are having 24 physical machines, 300 plus virtual machines created, and 143 applications successfully running on that. So this is the overview of the architecture that has been deployed. So this is for illustrative purpose. So we have at the bottom layer, we have the common resources being utilized through VMware, vSphere, Microsoft hypervisors. So using such technologies, we are utilizing the physical resources that is being shared over cloud, and we provide hosting as well as storage and all those services through this setup. Now, talking about security, security has been a major concern for most of the cloud service providers as well. So, keeping in that into mind, we see the security aspect, we cannot or nobody can ensure 100% compliance to security. So, there are some precautions that can be taken, which we have already implemented into our state data center. So, the major points that would be addressed would be user awareness should be there, like the departments, whoever are the users, they needs to be made aware of the security threats available prevailing right now in internet. Then we have also increased the maturity of security processes that has been implemented. We are already going ahead with ISO processes implementation as well. So continuous monitoring is also an important aspect. Security at each level has been envisaged. Security will be a priority in each of the initiatives. So hand in hand with developers, user departments, users is the key factor for assuring the optimum security. Now, talking about cloud, there are three major services provided: infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a services. So when we talk about control and flexibility of security, okay, so as we move towards software as a services, the actual ownership of control would be more with state data center. And as we move toward infrastructure as a service, wherein hosts IT infrastructure, physical hardware, okay, that is being hosted for the department, the liability of department increases there because the management and control remains with the department. So the benefits that has been achieved so far: lower costs, we have been using lower physical resources, the operational cost has come down, like very well mentioned by sir. We have invested 2 crore and got a benefit of and saved something around 50 crore. We have proved for agility, we have eliminated the procurement process cycle for user departments. The time to provision for hardware, software has come down. We have efficiently utilized the existing resources. In case there is maintenance to be carried out, then no downtime is required. We can shift the machine from one cloud to another, and we can carry out our maintenance. This is a universal and shared resource access, wherein we are having a common platform built for the government departments, easily accessible, which will result into better monitoring and management. Backup restoration is an important aspect in case of a disaster. If something goes down, then backup and restoration is much more easier for these virtual machines rather than traditional backups. And the onus of updation of software, patches, everything is with state data center. The user department need not worry about the patches and updates. So all the technology that is being used within data center would be latest. Collaboration, anytime, anywhere access. Departments can focus on their core functions. They need not be very much IT savvy. So everything, the ownership and the IT experts are available in state data center for user departments. So that has been the overall benefits. These are just a few of them. Now, while deploying cloud, there has been a lot of lessons learned. So initially, it was planned to go ahead with providing many services. So we started with infrastructure as a services and platform as a services, because unless and until you have your complete end-to-end software available with us, you cannot go ahead with software as a service. So start with IaaS, PaaS. Capacity planning is an important factor. Whenever we are deploying or implementing a cloud, capacity, whatever is available with us, RAM, GB, CPUs, everything that should be properly planned, and it should be in ratio. Now, rule-based auto-scaling for resources, one important aspect of cloud services, it is having orchestration layer wherein resources are automatically allocated to the required virtual machine based on the requirement. Okay, so even whatever network is to be envisaged for public traffic, for management, for internal traffic, monitoring traffic, that needs to be factored according to your requirements. Licensing policy, an important aspect, whatever operating system and the databases that we are procuring, that needs to be efficiently planned and licensing should be purchased accordingly. Backup and replication for entire virtual instance needs to be taken so that if any virtual instance goes down, entire backup of that virtual instance is available. Awareness to departments and the developers should be always carried out so that they can be aware about the latest developments that has been going on, as well as the compliance for getting them into cloud is achieved. Key takeaways.
Just sorry for interruption. Miss Reena has to leave because she has a flight. So we will thank you for your presentation.
So some of the key learnings for even the cloud service providers who wants to go ahead with cloud, particularly some state governments that wish to go ahead with cloud implementation, they can have 4 options. They can have private cloud service provider in their own data center, state nodal agency that can take a lead and act as a cloud service provider. Third option, state SDC as cloud service provider, and fourth option is dedicated government cloud can be created for multiple states, which can be used as if like we are using it for Maharashtra as of now. The same services can be extended to some other states as well. So this is the beauty of implementing cloud. Chargeback and sustenance, like I spoke earlier, we have prepared the rate charts. It initially started with free offering to the departments. We are having metering mechanism. Okay, whoever wants to opt for the cloud services, they can get that cloud services on monthly basis as well as on 15 days basis as well. So we also encourage the Government of India funded schemes which are into execution of e-governance can be hosted in state data center. That is encouraged. This is a sample report that is generated for chargeback on how it looks. Whatever the services are being provisioned from the data center will be having a chargeback modality to the user departments. So it's a glimpse of that. So these are the 2 Scotch awards that Mahagaon Cloud has already got. Way ahead, IPv6 rollout for applications, SWAN. We are into increasing the capacity of SDC. You can also do it self-provisioning. We will also provide self-provisioning for the departments wherein they can directly log into a portal. Whatever virtual machine they require, whatever storage they require, they can directly factor it there and they will get the machine within a couple of hours. Continual improvement and innovation is the way ahead. So we are looking into providing and innovating more and more services to be given through SDC Cloud. We also encourage a cloud community wherein government departments can participate for creating and helping and encouraging the usage of cloud, and business continuity and disaster recovery that we have already gone ahead with as of now for a couple of sites and a couple of applications. For data center, rest of the application, it is still under pipeline and we are going ahead with that. So that's the journey of state data center and it will continue. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kunal, for
Good discourse. but I have one thing to ask you. Can you elaborate a little more on the security aspects and licensing policy? And second thing, whether any tools for monitoring by the concerned department are available?
Yeah, coming to the first point for security aspects, we have one separate session for that as well. Okay. Second thing about
licensing
to monitor.
you know,
Licensing, yeah. For licensing, if we consider there are some licensing policies for operating systems wherein there are a couple of limitations of creating virtual machines. If you go for enterprise licenses, then you can create more and more number of virtual instances and virtual machines on that. Okay. Also, whenever you are deploying a database or a cloud cluster, okay, then also you need to factor the licensing policy that has been adopted by the database OEM. So those are the important aspects that needs to be factored. Okay. Third one, backup tools. Okay. For tools to monitor for user departments, ideally we already have tools deployed in data center through which we can monitor it. And as a service, if it is required to the user departments, then that can be extended through SDC.
Any more questions?
See, licensing for SDC is a bit of a tricky issue because sometimes even companies like Oracle, Microsoft, Red Hat, they are even today they are not very clear about what number of licenses are required. It's a very tricky game depending on physical server, CPU, core-based licenses, or sometimes if you are making cluster, a different thing applies. So we keep on working with all the vendors so that we are not under licensed, there are no compliance issues, and also so that we get good returns. So whether some application should be run on more CPU based thing or less CPU, more core based things, so that we can save on the number of licenses required. So we are working very proactively with almost all the OEMs on this. Second is, many people feel that when we say कि 2 crore खर्च करके 50 crore बचा लिए गप्पे मार रहे हैं. I will give you a live example. About a year ago, I very clearly remember team of consultants along with the employment exchange people, their officers, they came to my room and they came with a 20 crore rupees project, which they had worked on for practically 2 years. Very hard work they had put into that RFP, very thick RFP. They said it will take about 20 crore rupees. Then we went through the bill of material. I said servers, about 5 crores. मैंने कहा ये मैं free में दूंगा SDC में. So cut out servers. SMS gateway 2 crores. We said उसका SDC rate chart 10,000 रुपए का है. So let us cut it out. Email server separate, email solution, cut it out. In my SDC, rate chart of email starts at 15 rupees per mailbox per month. Payment gateway, we said no need. We have multiple payment gateways. Director accounts treasury has Grass payment gateway. Maha Online has connection with NSDL powered by BillDesk. So the entire thing is available. 2-3 more things. Then rollout. We had 45 exchanges. I said you can have 35,000 centers. Just allow the app to be run at citizen service centers. So the 45 balloons up to 35,000 exchanges. Then we said Aadhaar can be plugged into the system. CDAC helped them in localization. So ultimately the bill of material came down to 4 crore rupees. So in the same meeting after 1 hour, we said boss कि ये 5 crore से नीचे है, PIC की पावर में है. 2-3 दिन में PIC की मीटिंग लगाते हैं, अप्रूव किया PIC में. In 2-3 months, CMC won the bid. 4-5 months, they wrote beautiful code. And last week, they did a soft launch about 2 months ago. Last week, they went fully live, hammers and tongs. Now you see full page advertisements in newspapers from Maha Rozgar and Employment Exchange and all that department. So project time reduced from 3 or 4 potential years to actually less than 1 year for actual rollout. Costing reduced from 20 crores to 4 crores. This is one project I am talking about. So the impact has been dramatic. Now any department asks for a VM, we take 2-3 days for administrative approvals, getting to understand the needs. And actually the Wipro team, who are the operators for the data center, they physically take less than 2-3 hours to make available that machine. Now they have become smarter. Based on their experience of 150 applications, they have made 5-6 templates. So they just choose a template from a drop down, press a click, that's the end, the VM comes up. It's as easy. In data center now, we have taken a policy decision to keep only N and N-1 version. So Windows 2003 is out, actually out, not a single instance. It's a few 2008, most 2013. Same with SQL, same with Red Hat, same with Oracle, latest version, latest -1 version. Same with PHP, no application on PHP 4, it has to be 5+. Now, one more learning, we are stuffing all our blades, and we are taking only blades, no other servers. Now we are stuffing them with more and more RAM, and we are learning that we can increase the density even to 15 or 16. So I think VMware team will talk about that. So at the moment, I am at a density of about 9 applications per VM. We are also experimenting with, now rather than increasing our number of blades, whenever peak happens, how to shift over to BSNL public cloud. So we are working I think the POC is on since a month. So how do we automatically shift to the public cloud? So a hybrid solution. And licensing I talked about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal, for your nice presentation. You have combined the cloud concepts with reference to Maharashtra data center. It's the actual implementation of cloud concepts. I will now request Mr. Bhavesh Chauhan, who is a solution specialist with VMware, to make his presentation.
Good afternoon all. It was very nice presentation by my colleague Kunal. So he has given you an overview like what has been implemented at Maharashtra State Data Center and how we are still evaluating and doing a further steps of building a DR and other strategies for the Maharashtra State Data Center. So I would just like to spend some time on just giving an overview like what VMware is all about and where we are headed towards a cloud computing so-called, and where we are engaging with Maharashtra State Data Center for the further projects as well. Yeah, to start with, just to give a company overview, if you talk about VMware, we are the fastest IT growing company, infrastructure growing company. Just to give an example in that, we were in 2005, we were around $200 million company cash, right? But in just a period of 6 years, now we are 4.5 billion cash company. Because there are only 3 success factors or 3 mantras what we believe to grow exponentially, and that is innovation, innovation, and just innovation. These are the 3 key things which we believe in ourselves, and because of that, if you see, VMware is a customer proven market leader. If it talks about virtualization, all the customers today chooses or they have preferred that VMware should be the first platform whenever they talk about the virtualization, and because of this today we have 300,000 plus customers across worldwide. If you just talk about India, we have some approximately 4,000 plus customers. At the right hand side you can see that there are some few names of the customers who are using the VMware, and we are present across verticals in terms of banking sectors, government sectors, BFSI, and other departments as well. Right. So as per the study of the Gartner also, across the globe, the number of virtual servers which has been implemented, 81% plus is, out of those VMs are running on VM environment. So we have a predominantly major market share. Approximately as of now, 2012 and 2013, we have approximately 84% market share when it talks about the virtualization infrastructure, virtualization environment.
So how we do have, VMware is also having a great or one of the best ecosystem in the market today, because whenever we engage with the customers, we are 100% partner-driven company. So whatever transactions we do or whatever we do to our partner. So it is very essential or important for VMware that their partners has to be technically sound and certified, and they has to be aware of all the VMware technologies which is available today. So we run a program for partners where they get trained and certified on VMware technology. So in terms of partner, we have some 2,000 plus technology partners. Also, when it comes about the service provider, because today the trend is to go towards cloud or to host their application in the public clouds. So we have some 70 plus public service providers who you can choose across the globe and put your workloads, because those service providers are also using VMware as a platform. So you can choose any of these service providers. There is a as per your requirement, and you can put your workload onto the cloud service provider up there. Also, in terms of the channel partners, we have some 25,000 plus channel partners, and in the VMware professional services or VMware RAM, we have some 59,000 or 50,000 plus VMware professional partners. So together on the mix of all the efforts in terms of the partners, the VMware services and technology, we make sure that we give a collaborative or a combined commitment to the customer and make sure that the customer get bets out of it. There is no compromise in the solutions or the efforts or the technology which is provided to the customer. Also to give a glimpse of their presence in the government or the public sector, and it is a privilege and honor to have Government of Maharashtra in our reference customer. Like what Kunal was mentioning about that, we had approached sir, and because of the vision that Rajesh sir, IT sir had having in his vision that he wants the entire SDC to be fully automotive, cloud initiative, and he was seeing the that approach that very soon the infrastructure is going to grow, and it has to be grown in such a way that all the resources have been utilized in much efficient way and automated way. So that is why we had approached sir to give us a chance and opportunity that we can do our demonstration of our virtualization platform and run some few applications and see how it works. So when the POC was done in November, and slowly we had started with 2 applications, 3 applications, 4 applications, and so on and so forth. And today I'm happy to say that we have seen the figures already that we are running some more than 140 applications, which is all production application on VMware, and all application is working smoothly without any issues, and all the maintenance activity or the plant downtime activity or all the hardware maintenance activity, which was a pain and creating a lot of downtime in the physical environment, now that is gone. Because of the VMware solutions. So they have started with the bare virtualization environment. We're just starting to virtualize the environment, but today they are completely using a private cloud in their own setup. Not only they are using the virtualization technology to virtualize the applications, along with that they are also using the monitoring applications, which also monitors the entire virtual infrastructure, saying that what is the health of the infrastructure, whether the utilizations of the virtual infrastructure is optimum or not optimum, what is the risk, what is the capacity analysis of the entire infrastructure, when the capacity will be scarce and when they can have to increase the capacity. So all that monitoring capabilities is there. Along with that, they are also using the automation technology of self-service portal, where they have initiated the cloud, and currently it is running, and it is given, and we have now in a next step to give the cloud service portal to the end departments. So the department, they will log into the portal and they will start creating the VMs by themselves. So the complete solution along with the chargeback mechanism, that is a metering solution. We have already seen the rate contract which they are giving to the end departments. So starting from a journey to start the virtualization and migrate the physical workload to virtual to the private cloud setup, I'm thankful to Secretary Sir that they have chosen VMware as a platform, and we will always make sure that we are up to the toes and deliver our best. And the next plan of action or the next commitment we have already done with Sir is have to work on the BCP DR and the desktop virtualization piece, which is obviously Sir will see in the next results. So that was just a glimpse of the Government of Maharashtra, but along with that we have also other public sectors also using virtualization technology. Also, if you see like why there is a change in our mode of moving towards this technology, because if you see in the traditional environment, what we are used to is a desktop-centric device where all our application was being used on a desktop, where the application was very thick or very not light-weighted applications, and we were used to that. But slowly, what we have intended that we have to move from a desktop-centric to a user-centric, where I wanted to access my application from anywhere, any device. The application should be very light code, and it can be accessed in very faster way, and all this has to be done available in no matter of time. So because of all this requirement, what we have also have to do at the underline is to have an infrastructure which is from a traditional, which is a very silos of infrastructure, to do a technology where we can start consolidating all the physical into few servers using the virtualization technology, over and above utilizing or efficiently utilizing the infrastructure, and doing an auto provisioning or auto scaling mechanism where we can use this hardware or the pool in much efficient way and move towards cloud. So this is what made a key initiative for all the customers today to go towards cloud computing for efficient pooling and on-demand scaling and all these things. So today VMware is involved in complete transformation of the IT data center. Starting with the infrastructure layer, where as we have already done this first layer at the Government of Maharashtra State Data Center, we already done the first layer where we have touched the infrastructure piece. We have consolidated all their physical infrastructures or all their physical servers into few servers. Currently what they are seeing are 24 to 25 physical servers are there, which is running some 300, 350 plus virtual servers, which is all in production environment. So we have saved a lot of physical infrastructures, power, cooling, or capex, opex cost, and by using the further modules like automations and monitoring and everything, now we are running a private cloud setup in the DIT of Maharashtra. So this is the first layer which we touch upon. The second layer, once the infrastructure is fully automated, cloud ready and everything, the applications also has to be cloud ready. Because today, if I give you a best in class services that you can run an optimum application on this physical hardware, because this hardware is highly scalable, highly efficient in terms of providing the resources, the application should also understand I am an on-demand, I can scale, or on-demand I can increase. It should be very light in code. The framework has to be designed in such a way that it can be easily accessible, easily portable in any of the platform, be it a private cloud or a public cloud or any service provider. So VMware has a solution where you can develop your application using a Spring, as a Spring framework, where you can develop and design your application which is very light in weight and light in code, so that this application can be easily be portable within your data center or outside your data center, which is using the public service providers. And last thing is, once the application is also very light in weight and easily accessible, I want to access my application or my services from anywhere. I don't need to stick to a single desktop or a laptop. I wanted to access my application from any device, be it a laptop, an iPad, or a mobile device. So that application is, easy, scalable, portable, so that I can access it from anywhere. That is the cloud ready applications. And last thing is the accessibility. So I can access it from anywhere, any device, and in a secure manner. Gone are the days, because now what we are hearing from the customer, like if you are accessing an internet, whenever I wanted to save my data, today we have a facility of a Dropbox where you can access our emails and you can store something at a Dropbox facility where you can get a free space of maybe 5 GB to 50 GB, whatever. But customer is always having back in the mind that what about the security of the data? I am getting a space somewhere in the cloud where I can access my emails, or I can access my application, I can save the data at the Dropbox, but the data is not secure. Some of the customer is getting that at the back of the mind. So today VMware has a solution where you can have the same Dropbox kind of facility within your own perimeter network, which is secure. So today, once your application is virtualized, it is a cloud ready application, you have the facility of a Dropbox kind of facility in your own parameter network, so you can access from your application from anywhere, any device, and you can just, in the matter of a laptop and iPad, you can access the application and the data is available at Dropbox, which is in your parameter network. So that is kind of transformation which VMware is already working on it, and this is what the customer is adopting. So be it the infrastructure layer, the application layer, or the end user desktop layer, which all these three pillars is having a footprint of VMware. And we have covered the first layer, that is infrastructure layer at DIT of Maharashtra. The next 2 layers are in what pipeline or are in process of implementing at the DIT. Right. So as I was mentioning about why we are doing this trend, because this is what the trend we have seen in the market. If you see the deployment of the physical servers along with the deployment of the virtual servers from the last 5 years, the requirement or the need of deploying these servers is more towards virtual rather than physical. People are more deploying the virtual environment because they have seen the benefits out of virtualizing, of saving the capex, power and all this cost. But this is also one thing that now people have started more on deploying virtual machines. There is something which has to be automated. I can deploy a virtual machine because I have that facility, I have that virtualization layer, but I did not need to do it on and going basis. I wanted to use some automation techniques and methods through which I can use an automation way and start deploying on its own, automatic increasing, automatic decreasing the resource and everything, right? So this is the next steps what we are seeing in the market, and where VMware is providing all these solutions towards the market. And in terms of virtualization of the workload, in 2008 we were saying that there were out of the entire physical infrastructure, there were 25% plus of workload which was virtualized. In 2012 this number went to 60%, but in 2012 or maybe in future, what we are saying that 90% plus of the virtualization or the workloads would be virtualized, and the demand would be in quick way. So where VMware is heading towards now is to create something, because we have already done the infrastructure layer, application layer and the end user layer. The next future or the next roadmap where VMware is working to define something called a software defined data center, where we have already virtualized the physical hardware which is servers, but what about the network and what about storage? So VMware is towards this direction where we can also, using our modules, we can also virtualize the network, physical network and physical data store or physical storage, so that the time which was taken earlier of deploying a virtual machine through template was maybe 5 minutes. My VM is ready, but whatever time the storage vendor or network vendor will take to create a data store and allocate to a virtual machine or to create an IP address, all that time also gets eliminated, and I can do everything from just one single console, right from deploying a VM to creating a data store and to create an IP address. Everything can be done from a matter of just one click. So that is where people are more focused and more oriented, and VMware is driving towards there. So after you virtualize and you use all these technologies, there are definitely 3 core benefits. First thing is you reduce the complexity in the environment. Basically of reducing the silos of hardware or physical data center rack space which is in traditional environment. You reduce that by putting virtualization technology and running everything in just few servers. And by using the automations and virtualization technology, you can easily access the resources based on demand, efficient resource, and based on the automation technologies. And at the last, because of you are having all this automations and on-demand pooling and scaling of the resources, you can make sure that you are accessing these services and IT. What you are making the IT as a service point of view. So there is an agility in the business, and ultimately IT would also be seen as a accessibility, where you can have IT as a not a cost centric sector. It is like a savings in the overall infrastructure. So once you do at the 3 layers, basically there are also financial benefits out of it. First thing is, once you reduce the overall infrastructure, there is a huge savings of capex cost for the first phase. For server virtualization, in terms of 50-60% of the capex cost you save over there. Approximately 20 to 25% of OPEX cost you save, because once you virtualize, you reduce the overall hardware footprint to few servers, but still use those physical hardware in much efficient way and give out of it, because the resources are already available on those physical hardware. What we are doing is just virtualizing and making that hardware to work more efficiently, and thereby reduce the overall capex cost in terms of power, cooling, hardware, rack space and everything. And earlier there was, for example, 10 to 12 engineers to manage a set of 100 or 200 or 400 servers. Once it has been using a virtualized technology and using much in efficient way, you are also reducing the number of administration or the man hours which has been spent, because now everything is virtual automation. Then why would require more man hours to do the same kind of job which they were doing in traditional environment? So that man hours or that people can be used in much efficient way in some other business initiatives, and thereby increase their productivity by that much percentage, right? And as there are the key initiatives that everything has to be a greenfield environment, that they can save some carbon footprint and increase the overall efficiency of the carbon. So VMware, once you reduce the overall hardware, you are also saving a lot of carbon footprint, and at the end you are returning back to the carbon credits and saving there as well. So this is all benefits or the results of the transformation to the environment. At the end, we are always hearing about the cloud computing. So, but in cloud computing, there are various models which, we have discussed earlier as well, that when is a private cloud, public cloud, and other cloud service provider. Currently, what DIT of Maharashtra or SDC is running is IT as a service and PAT, public as a services, where they have set up their own private cloud and giving these two services to their end department or the end users. But in the market, there are also various public service providers which like to host these services from the external customers and host their services in the public service provider. Apart from this, there are some platform as a services which runs in this public service providers. But what we are focusing is on, rather than using software as a service from one vendor, then public providers will offer some services from their public environment. What VMware Cloud, or what we actually called as a cloud, is it's nothing but an approach where we can use services in much efficient way. It is based on demand and based on the availability of the resources, and meant from which we can create a service where it can be accessible from any point of time. And when this kind of availability and IT as a service is available, this is what traditionally we call that is your cloud, rather than calling it's a public cloud or a private cloud or some X person's cloud. This is what we call it's a your cloud, where you can freely choose whether you wanted to run your application on within your data center, or you wanted to host in some other's data center, but you can access the services based on your demand and based on your requirement. And at the last, what is mentioning about is the hybrid cloud, because this is what we are, customer is more or the, towards working. And same vision Secretary Sir is also having, where they are saying that my SDC data center is currently my private cloud, but I wanted to make sure that I can use a hybrid cloud technology where I will use my other data centers across the, government, where maybe Delhi NIC data center is my next cloud, maybe next private cloud. We said NIC at the data center Delhi. Nagpur could be another data center. Whenever there is a demand, more demand from Nagpur, but that the server is not capable of delivering that resources at that point of time, those applications can easily be migrated to the state data center at Mumbai and access it at any point of time. Similarly, vice versa, if there is a more utilization from state data center at Mumbai, and that point of time, if the hardware is not free, or if hardware is not capable, able to give that much resources, those applications can be migrated or portable to any of the data center which have that much of resources, and easily access the resources at any point of time. So this is the vision which IT Secretary Sir is also having, and we are working towards that direction, that we can create a cloud community portal where all across the boundaries the platform is same, so that application can be migrated. So it's the same example here it is illustrated, where currently the private cloud is what is implemented at the DIT of Maharashtra, and with the help of the VMware solutions.
Bhavesh, you have to conclude in 2-3 minutes, because there are two speakers.
Yeah, just last thing. So with the help of the VMware solutions, what we are doing is we can easily portable or migrate the application from private cloud to any of the public service providers, and without any changing the application. That's the beauty of the VMware, because once you have to migrate the application from your data center to any of the third data center or any of the public service provider, you not need to change the application. It is simply migration from one environment to another environment, because all the public service providers are using the same VMware platform in the environment. And my last piece is, the only VMware delivers the best hypervisor or the best VMware solutions, virtualization solution in the market, with the help of which we reduce the overall capex opex cost, and with the help of the efficient pooling and automations, we make sure that the overall with the help of the overall solutions, we also make sure that the hardware or the platform is much more reliable and proven, and make sure that there is no downtime or disruption in the overall services. And last thing which I wanted to mention is because in short of time I'll not be able to go much in detail, but we have a VMware booth outside where we have lot of demos and other things which we can address your queries and concern much in detail, and we have so much of education which we need to give to the end customers. So we welcome all of you to be at the demo. Just be at the time, and we can share what all things we can give as a solutions, or how we can help you in your environment and how we can take it ahead for them. That's what I wanted to convey. Thank you.
Any questions, please?
Yeah, any questions as of now I can take, or I can take at the booth as well, because we are just running in short of time.
I think VMware and cloud virtualization go together.
Yeah.
He will be available offline also for the questions.
Yes.
And now, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
May I now invite Mr. Venkatesh Ramarao ji. He is the head state government business in Wipro, and I request him to make his presentation.
Actually, they say most accidents on the road happen within 60 minutes of having your food. I think I've got the death slot right now, exactly 60 minutes after food. I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. So basically, I'm here to talk about how is it that cloud computing actually will enable e-governance for good governance. So I heard a news story from the IT Secretary, Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, that the way in which you do e-governance is you try to eliminate governance. So it's a new learning for all of us, and we'll try to eliminate as many unimportant things and go ahead with the most serious matters. So typically e-governance comes from the 5 core principles which the IT Secretary talked about. But if you look at it, what is it that makes the scale so huge? There are 35 states and union territories in India, almost 3.3 million square kilometers of territory to cover, 1.2 plus billion citizens, 19 million plus government employees, and a GDP of 1.5 trillion. All this is actually huge. So anything that you do in IT is going to have a massive scale. Whether making the government more accessible for the citizens, or facilitating social inclusion, or providing information responsibly, or even using the state's resources effectively and more efficiently. So whatever you do, anything that you do in terms of building services is going to be massive. And when you have anything massive this size, you really need to plan and do it properly. So typically the IT infrastructure used to be a set of applications being hosted in a place for the employees or for the citizens, and this used to be managed in a very efficient way, or that's what we used to think. As and when the computing models improved, you realize that you could go into a cloud, you could deliver services by virtualizing certain services and delivering it from the existing hardware. So all this meant that you will give it as and when the citizen demands those services. 10 years ago, how many of you would have actually imagined that when you pick up a phone, the phone would actually work? A lot of us used to curse the existing service provider. But today it is given, it's given for granted that when you pick up the phone, it really works. How many of you are actually using, as the IT Secretary said, how many, that most of the treasury applications have moved away from checks and have moved into electronic payment. How many of you have actually visited your bank branch in the last few years? I, for one, haven't seen my bank branch for the last 5 years. I can walk into any branch, get any service from any ATM. It's all virtual for me. It doesn't matter. The same concept now extends into the IT world. So what are the things that are actually making this possible? You've got cloud computing, you've got mobile applications. What I see on my desktop, I want to see it on my iPad, I want to see it on my mobile phone, which is probably on Android. I want the same look and feel because I don't need to get trained separately for all these things. And more applications are moving towards the social media and social communications. So gone are the days when the Oracles and the SAPs would be the prime applications. Video is an extremely key driver for these things. The city surveillance projects, just imagine the amount of video being captured by 6,000 cameras across in the city of Mumbai. That runs into petabytes. Where are they storing it? Are you really bothered about where it's being stored? Because at the end of the day, if I put things on the cloud, It's supposed to be as simple as possible at the front end. All the complexity runs at the back end, and what they do at the back end should not matter to the end user. How is it that the government is going to benefit from the cloud value proposition? End of the day, everyone wants to increase the productivity for the employee and for the citizen. I need to be assuring the citizens that I will deliver a service in a given point in time. If I have a commitment of being able to deliver a particular service in 15 minutes, I should either do it in less than 15 minutes or say that, sorry, I can't deliver this service within the time frame. I need to have a rapid go-to-market. For example, if there is an application or there is a service which is supposed to give out the results after your class 10 examinations, at that time I need to use those services. At the rest of the year, for the balance 360 odd days, that particular set of hardware and the application is not going to be used at all. So I need to have an application which can be rolled out immediately in less than 15 minutes if required. End of the day, I also need to be green. I need to save on resources, because all these computers, all these servers that you put in, however they may be efficient, still consume electricity, still consume the AC that you need to provide, because they generate so much of heat. The more and more you put in terms of the compute, the more heat it generates, which means you need to provide more cooling. So how do I reduce all those things? And end of the day, everyone wants unlimited capacity. I want to be scaling up like this. When the IPL match is happening, the websites have much higher number of hits. Rest of the 10 months, that's it. I need to go down and be able to serve some other customer. So if you look at it, virtualization and cloud actually go hand in hand, and there are a lot of techniques that are used to deliver these services across multiple devices to the end user. I'm going to make it as complicated as possible for you guys. I am finally a system integrator. I am in the business to make money by reducing your complexity. So whenever you move from a traditional IT into a cloud model, there is a lot of complexity which you need to take care. Then you may need to port applications, you may need to migrate certain applications, you may need to retire certain applications, you may need to develop new applications. And at the end of the day, I need to take care of any compliance issues that may be there. So as an organization, Wipro is actually capable of delivering all these things to you. Whether it's a greenfield setup, whether it's a transformational setup, or whether I need to integrate cloud into an existing setup, or whether I need to set up a public cloud. We also provide advisory services for setting up clouds. How does it work for the SDC? As pointed out from the morning, when you have a lot of hardware running in your system, it depends on how you are able to optimize the amount of hardware and run more and more applications. That happens when you virtualize. So if you look at it, finally, there is a core service automation and management that happens. There is some amount of security management I need to ensure, because two different departments need to be kept out. They don't want to be seeing each other's data. I need to take care of the network management. I need to take care of the storage management. And finally, I need to take care of the monitoring and delivering of the service levels, as pointed out by the gentleman a few minutes ago. All this is something which we can take care in a simple solution. So if you look at it, the primary purpose of the cloud computing is to ensure that I have a viable hybrid model, so that I can use the resources that I have today, and as and when needed, I can borrow from somebody else. So that model is something which is going to be extremely crucial, and more governments today are talking in terms of being able to deliver this to their citizens. So there are multiple ways in which you can embrace a cloud. One is going in with an application-led approach. The other is with an infrastructure-led approach. Both of them have their own pluses and minuses. And finally, you also want to ensure that whatever you do, you have business agility, you have standardization in whatever you do, you are able to simplify the process, and finally you achieve the variabilization. By that I mean, whatever you do, I need to have that scale wherein I'm able to deliver the services in the format that the citizen wants. This service orientation is actually going to be very critical. Now, whether it is a citizen of your state who is going to use it, or whether it's an employee of the state who is going to use that service, there is a lot of complexity that happens at the back end. As Sir was pointing out a few minutes ago, there are certain applications which are disk intensive. There are certain applications which are compute intensive. There are some which will just use your disk in terms of storing data. There are some applications which will be network bandwidth intensive, and there are some which are transaction oriented. You need to segregate these applications in various buckets and distribute the load accordingly and ensure that, if there are 2 or more applications which are network bandwidth intensive, you don't put them on the same set of servers or the same set of network ports and then get choked. You have to have that basic intelligence in terms of understanding how that application works and be able to segregate it. End of the day, what runs in the back end, inside the data center, is something which your citizen or your employee will not bother. For him, it should be as simple as picking up a phone and being able to hear a dial tone. So, end of the day, whenever you do this, what is going on at the back end inside the data center, whether it is 30 servers or 50 servers or 150 servers being used, they want that service to be available when they want it. And that is the critical part of delivering the cloud services. Over the next few years, if you look at it, more and more the discrete applications are going to come down and the cloud applications are going to go up. But this also means that, there are going to be some key focus areas for the state. One is they need to refresh and repurpose the existing assets. Because, certain more technologies will come in which will allow you to do a little bit more management and all those things will come in. But do I get rid of a server which I bought 2 years ago? Maybe, you're paid about 10 lakh rupees for that server. Do I get rid of it? Maybe the answer is no. The idea is, how do I utilize the existing assets? How do I redeploy them? How do I repurpose them? Maybe, things which I was using in the web layer, I move them into the app layer, or I move them into the web layer and have a new set of servers into the database. So maybe, that is how you try to reuse existing equipment. There is always a skill refresh that is required, because when you're doing these things, the traditional mindset of, I want to see my server under my nose will not work. So you need to plan it in such a way that your IT staff are skill refreshed and they have enough role changes to understand how this thing works. You will also get into complexity in terms of vendor and product portfolio management. As it was pointed out, how do I take care of the licensing for multiple operating systems within the same setup? How do I license the database? So you need to plan for these things, ensure that you have enough dialogue with the particular product supplier and work it out in such a way that you reduce your cost. It is not easy. One particular operating system vendor says, however be the number of virtual machines that you use, you need to license every particular virtual machine. The database vendor may particularly come and say, I will not allow you to partition, I need you to license all cores. The idea is, how do you strike a balance between those? That is critical, and that is something which you need to understand. Retooling of applications, I think my friends here who spoke before me spoke about it a lot. End of the day, when you need to split this and when you want to move across to the other cloud or to somebody else's public cloud, will your application support those sort of things? So that retooling of applications is very critical. Data and information management, I think we have spoken about it since the morning. Very critical. There are certain data which cannot leave the Indian boundary. So you need to plan it in such a way that that particular law is not misused or law is not broken. And finally, you need to work in an ecosystem wherein your system integrator who manages the hardware, your application vendor who's developed your application, and your cloud service provider actually work together in a team to ensure that you succeed. Otherwise, if even one of the links fail, you will not be in a situation to deploy whatever you are looking at. One slide in terms of what is it that Wipro is doing in Maharashtra. We have offices in about 5 or 6 locations in Maharashtra. We are the current application vendor and the system integrator for Maharashtra CCTNS. We are also the vendor who's deployed the Maharashtra State Data Center, and we are managing it. We are also consulting for the Agricultural Produce and Marketing Committee. And we are application vendors in the Maharashtra Water Resources Department. So if you look at it, there is a reasonable amount of investment that Wipro has made into the state of Maharashtra in terms of people, in terms of projects, and in terms of skills. And all these things go into helping the local administration work out in terms of how is it that we can take it to the next generation, whether it is from a single server implementation into a cloud implementation to whichever way. So it's quite a complex system wherein you really need to integrate a lot of things and deliver the SLAs which are required. Finally, one last slide about Wipro. These are figures as of March 31st. About $5.2 billion in terms of revenue. About 953 partners across the globe. Roughly about, at last count, about 136,000 employees, out of which maybe about 14 or 15,000 are based in Maharashtra. We are in the top 25 list of companies, and we are present in about 54 countries. And I'm through with my slide deck. Any questions, I will be happy to answer.
Any questions, please, to Mr. Venkatesh?
Thank you. I think I was right. Most accidents happen after 60 minutes of eating food. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Venkatesh, for making Wipro's point of view over the cloud and your contribution in the state of Maharashtra. I now request Mr. G.B. Sheikh, he is our final speaker. He is working with Fortinet and dealing with the state and government and defense initiative, and he will be talking about the security of SDC and in particular and in general e-governance security aspects. So I now request Mr. Sheikh to make a presentation.
So, good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm not hearing anybody there, out there. So, respected Mohit Saab and respected Rajesh ji, it's really a privilege and honor to be in front of you to present this. See, any presentation, if it becomes unilateral, it becomes monotonous. You know, the user participation is not there, that doesn't become fruitful. So what I had to be standing out here because, you know, it's very difficult for me to, you know, bound to some place and then talk to you. So I'm an action and joyful guy, so I wanted to be like that only. So bear with me. When I'm starting from Hyderabad, I thought that it's Mumbai, Bollywood. There would be some, you know, kind of joy would be there, but everybody is sleeping kind of start. So just wake up. So secure e-governance, just to kid you and wake you up is, I just throw you few questions to you, and there could be some gift hamper coming from my office. Can somebody tell me what is the fastest animal on the earth? There is a gift for this. Wake up. As many people say, there would be a gift hamper for all of them. Leopard. What else? What else? Okay, next I am going. It's cheetah. The next one. Who is the fastest man in the world? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's Jamaican Bolt. Which is the fastest firewall on the earth?
The one that was made yesterday.
Good. Now, can I have this one instead of this? Okay. What I was trying to tell you is that, anyhow, whoever has answered that questions, you know, probably the gift hamper is going to come in. So what is, you know, agenda is going to be very quick. I'm not going to stand. One more story was there, you know, I just wanted to share that with you. Last time when I was attending this kind of conference, what has happened is, one of the gentleman director was about to give a good order. So the next day, the presenter like me has taken a time so much that he could miss his lunch. So he punished him with no order. So we always try to be as precise as possible. So e-governance security, traditional security approaches in e-governance, attack hype versus reality. We are very much, you know, vendors and everybody keeps telling you that, you know, attack, attack, attack. Is it a hype or a reality? SDC security framework, about global level and end user department level, I have come across a lot of things, you know, saying, you know, user departments are very, very scary of going to SDC, and, you know, why is it? How Fortinet solutions better e-governance security. That's the, you know, very simple agenda. If you look at it today, e-governance is being defined as it can be civil and political conduct of government, including service provision and using information communication technologies, ensuring, please understand these words, confidentiality, integrity, availability, non-repudiation aspects of the data. This is most important. Security guys will always come in the last stage of this IT infrastructure part, but they play a very important role. Am I right? Nobody likes the security guy to be there. But that's how, it's a lot of privacy and citizen privacy information is getting onto these things. If you look at the current state of e-governance in India, see the P says to you is that, you know, I picked up a slide from 2009. It says that, you know, the major where you are getting hit majorly in government. Look at it, you know, anonymous is the group. The day one judgment comes, Supreme Court, you know, web server is going to get hacked. The second thing, something happens and, you know, the web server gets defaced. So majority of the government websites, if you look at it in the last 20 years, I have been saying it, that, you know, the vulnerable is the, you know, web servers. So obviously, you know, that is a concern area that I believe policymakers will have to get into it. traditional security approaches, I was talking about, attack hype versus reality. If you go and talk, see anywhere, any of the, the consultants and any of the people who are out there, they talk about, SDCs or any e-governance product should have an IPS, firewall, attacks are coming in. What about other malware? From where the attacks are coming in, when email comes, one URL is there, that URL takes you to an attack server, and then attacker will attack you. Am I right? What is the genesis of an attack? Second attack, if I need to tell you, is that you wanted to go to ICICI Bank site. Then what happens is, your DNS server is being hijacked, you are being supplied by an IP address, which is an African hacker. Am I right? Where is the root problem? The root problem is at the DNS server. Am I right? So instead of actually addressing these kind of root problems, most of the vendors and consultants today in the e-governance architecture is making a lot of hype just to make some more solutions sell out there. So I would really request you people, so how this actually works. In my opinion, most blended attacks are the most dangerous attacks rather than the IPS attacks. Any firewall, if you simply look at it, can normal guy can fool it off. For example, I'll take a simple joke kind of thing. Mr. Firewall, sir, I'm just carrying a photo. It is not an ordered material. Oh, well, I scanned, you are right, you can come in. That's how it looks at it. See, another guy who cut the another piece of it, hi, Firewall, sir, I'm just carrying a photo. It's not an ordered material. Well, I scanned, you are great, come in. Then at the end, if you look at it, this is what has happened. And still he says, hey, I am the best of the breed security product. So what I'm trying to tell you is that probably today, if you have come to this Taj Hotel earlier, 5 years back, you would not have seen the kind of security today you are seeing it. Your bag is being checked, your every part, almost your car, engine, bonnet and everything is being completely checked. So today's e-governance, if you are looking at it, is predominantly, influenced by this attack hype, whatever is there written down, and which is only looking at only 3 layers of the part. And that can be easily fooled by any of the, the pockets. If you saw that, I have shown you in that, a pocket can be broken, a material, a content can be broken in a number of pieces. All these firewall IPS devices will not be able to find it out. If you look at it from the consultant's approach to the SDC security, I am a top class consultant, I can only look at it the best of the breed security product for SDC e-governance security. And they are mostly, why I have taken these pitches, they are mostly influenced by these brands and the way they are proposing the, the architecture that has to be there. We should get out of this is what, my humble this thing. So that was the framework what I have spoken to you. Now, if I go to the ground reality of SDC's security framework, why you must be seeing that, why I have taken a flat kind of an example out there, and what is this to do with the SDC? See, if I go back and I tell you, SDC is nothing but a multi-tenant environment, am I right? You have a flat system in the Bollywood, here in the Mumbai, where you can go, everybody has a flat and everything, and then there would be a common way to go in, am I right? SDCs also think in the similar framework. What is the main concern out here is actually, if you have a global gate, similar to the apartment flat what you have, if that gate is compromised, each one of the flat could be compromised, am I right? That is the biggest fear what you have user departments going to the SDCs. That is the biggest flaw in terms of design that has been done, from my perspective. So when I said global network level security is, the gate at the apartment has to be virtualized in such a way that every user department thinks that my gate is virtual gate and it is mine. So nobody else can fiddle around with it. So when you have that kind of approach at a global level, you have to have a virtual architecture in terms of network security, then the resistance from the user departments will reduce. Then end user department network security level. Okay, what they say is that when I bring in a rack, a server, a secure applications, I need to have full control of what my access to be there, because it's a multi-flat environment, am I right? There are a lot of flats are there. sorry. Each flat owner wants to have his own key, am I right? Nobody wants to give a key to a global guy, am I right, in your apartment. In the SDCs also similarly, every rack, every individual department who is hosting the kind of applications out there wants to have his own firewall sitting out there. So that's the next level of security framework that you can think of. Hybrid level of security, what I would think of is going to be like, you can have something like a virtual one at the gateway for each of the end-user department and a physical one at the rack level, so that you can have the full control what you can do it, so that anybody who meddle around at the global level will not affect each of the end-user department which is there. This is my thoughts actually, am I right? SDC e-governance app security. I just wanted to speak about this actually. I have seen that, pretty recently, a lot of, I said, most of these consultants, what they have done is that, we driven by the attack hype, what I have spoken to you, what they did is that they gave you the firewall and IPS, am I right? Most of the last 4 or 5 SDCs I have seen, most of them web servers have been hacked. Now most of these SDCs and the in-charges, they have been talking about having a web application firewall. Now a lot of people in the government department ask me, what is web application firewall? So you simply think in that fashion that you go to a general physician, if you have a problem, he will look at all your aspects, am I right? He will say that you have a headache, what to do, what not to do. And something very, very serious happens to you. He cannot diagnose. He can send it to somebody specialist, am I right? Whereas web application firewalls, in the e-governance architecture, if you look at it, it's very, very key. Every application which is citizen-oriented application is a prime target of DDoS attacks, or cross-shifting attacks, SQL attacks, privacy information stealing attacks, or state-sponsored targeted malware attacks. I'll talk about what is state-sponsored targeted malware. Then again, I'll give you one more story of DB security. The second concern part is, so that's the reason I'm saying, if anything is going in SDCs, please ensure, Moisab, that a web application firewall is put in place so that a brand image of government, India as a country doesn't go down. The second aspect is that, as per IT Act 2000 also, if you look at it, every 6 months, it is the responsibility of the data collector to ensure that the data that is being collected is kept very securely, not lost. And you are responsible for the defamation if the owner of the data sues you in the end user department. For example, you collected some information from municipal records, you lost it to some hacker. As a citizen, that is I am the owner of my date of birth and everything, that information. You as a municipal commissioner, only the custodian of the data. If you lose the data, I can go and sue in Supreme Court and get the damages that done. So it's very, very, the problematic for you if you don't, wake up and look into it. Why I say DB security is, I'll give you a simple example. One of the bank is actually, one of the company has gone to the bank and said that, these are the people, the money has to go to them in an Excel sheet. Then immediately, that bank has uploaded that Excel sheet into the central bank CBS application. So any person who has to get, I don't know what has happened there in the application translation of this Excel sheet into the application, every beneficiary got added by double zeros. Thank God I was not one of the beneficiary. If I was 1 lakh guy, I became, say 10,000 guy, I became 1 lakh guy. Am I right? Or 1 lakh guy, 1 crore guy. And it was not detected actually. And one of the remote branch guy has found that this is an electrician guy, bugger. He never saw a money of 50,000. How can he get a 10 crores in his account? So if you would have a DB security, database security, what used to happen is that it would have alerted you. There is a field which never has more than 5,000 rupees. Today it is having something else. So that proactively gives you a chance. See, in the database security, what is important is that you are a director, there is a deputy director who doesn't need to see what is director's salary. That is a confidentiality, am I right? You have to ensure that that mechanism in place. I'm sorry to say, most of the e-governance projects lacks this security aspect. Data at rest security. Where are you storing? I went to one of the government department, I asked him, where is your data backup? He has given me the address. Borivali, so and so place. Can you imagine this? I am an outsider, stranger. If you give me this, what will happen? So something like, social awareness you need to bring into the picture. And I'll throw you one more example. It will be a very funny example. There's a doctor in Hyderabad. Both of them are, wife and husband is the doctor. Okay? Usually, that relationship will always have some kind of problem, am I right? So what happened is that doctor's Gmail account actually, she wanted to access. She cut hold of his phone and he was sleeping. She went onto the internet, got the phone, got the passcode, got it, set it up. Then she has out there the whole information in front of her. So what happened is a different story out there. I'll tell you in one-on-one. I spoke about world's fastest firewall. Let me tell you how I am going to help you. See, I am not here to sell anything about Fortinet. I just gave you a perspective on security. I have so much to speak on security. I have 20 years of experience, so many things I have handled it. And most of the times, I saw one of the, end user department. I am ready to put, let's suppose, say 10 crores on SAP. I say, sir, what about security? Let me think of. So when everything goes down, then he says that, "Arey Sheikh, come on." So let's have an approach. The approach has to be right in the design stage. When you are involving, infrastructure, servers and everything, at that design itself, if you can involve a blended, content-based attack devices, security devices, leaving alone this attack and attack. Concentrate on antivirus, concentrate on your DNS, concentrate on your other web content filtering. These are the places from where the threat actually comes in before the attack happens. So Fortinet has been in the forefront for these all blended attack, security scanning mechanisms with purpose-built appliances. And that's why I said there is a price for the guessing. This is the world's fastest firewall. And I have hidden the competitor information out there, so it doesn't look nice, but one-to-one I can share you. We are scaling out there. And what you are seeing is that typically in SDC kind of environment, this physical box can be cut into some 5,000 pieces. Am I right? Each of that piece can be given to one treasury department, one labor department, and those people can directly manage those firewalls and rules and can directly go to their rack and do what they want to do. When you are doing something on your virtual firewall, labor department guys mess around anything, it doesn't affect the treasury department. This is the assurance that needs to be given to the end user departments in SDCs. Then you get some kind of acceptance levels. I see a lot of capacity got built up. The convincing part on the people of the SDCs is little less. So that is where we need to change. So how it happens is in the FortiGate environment is going to be we call as a virtual firewall. And you will have a separate table scanning IPS and everything into each of those firewalls that you can do. So my last slide on Fortinet products, we have I'm sorry, I was not keeping well. Still I have to come for this presentation. We have products like FortiDDoS, that is distributed denial of services, which can be very useful. And then you have FortiDB, that is the database security. Then we have FortiAnalyzer, it's a forensic appliance, wherein whatever data which is going in, coming in out of your firewalls can be seen. The emails, the web pages that you visit, all that stuff will be there. Then you have web security also out there, and then authentication mechanisms. I can take one-to-one on these product lines if you want to see. Some of the big names, if you look at it, what we are already working is, these are the big names. And we have our products and solutions rate contracted with NIC. If anybody is interested on those solutions, they can get in touch with the NICSI for the solutions. If you have any questions, right away I can answer. Or if I'm taking more time and people want to go out, then we can take one-on-one. Any question is there, one or two I can answer. But whoever has the smartphones, I have an advice to all of you. There's an application called FlexiSpy. Please be careful. Any questions? I think let us go.
There are no questions.
I think no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Singh.
Thanks.
And you have spoken on a very important topic of security, because the citizens are becoming very demanding and there are high expectations from the government. And all our applications have to be, more secured and the citizen data is very important. And as our Chief Minister has also mentioned in a foreword to our status, you might have received in today's brochure. See, he has emphasized upon the two things: the good governance and the good technology. Then that is the combination of these two will enable us to give e-governance, good e-governance. So I would now take this opportunity to thank all the speakers. Mrs. Reena, she had to leave early because her flight was there, and Mr. Venkatesh, Mr. Sheikh, Mr. Bhavesh, Mr. Prunar, and I think all the speakers have presented very nicely, and the cloud is the way ahead if we want to minimize the cost and give the efficient services, and we can focus more on our domain work, and then other things can be, left to the administrators of the clouds like that. So I would like to thank all of you. Thank you very much, and we will be breaking for tea.
May I request the chair to kindly give away the token of appreciation as a memento to all our speakers. Thank you. Give me a big hand, please. Thank you so much, Mr. Venkatesh. We have the representative from VMware, and we have Kunal from Department of IT. And I will like to, just a second, we have another memento, please, for the chair. Now immediately start with our next session, and those who want to have tea, they can always pick it up and come inside. We are already running late and very late, so we are starting the next session on ICT in education, and I will request Rashita to kindly come on the stage and announce about this session, please.